going to introduce Austin here again. He's going to go into this next piece, Understanding Generations, to beef up membership. I am extremely thankful that we are recording this so I can go back and take a look at it afterwards, because I'm going to pop out of here and go across the street. But again, give another warm welcome for Austin Large to kick this off. So Austin.
Thank you again, Paul, and thanks everyone. I always find myself like bringing people back from a break or interrupting a conversation. So it's a miracle that I don't get like food or things thrown at me. Before we dive into this, I do want to jump back to a question from my first presentation. So Amanda, you asked just for some context about the nationwide states. So I pulled that up while Paul was talking, and I wanted to just share that with folks. So over that same 10-year period, the entire nationwide 8-state group has seen a 61.39% decrease in membership. Individual states range between 42 and 65%. Ohio is sitting at 64.69%. So wanted to share that with you because you asked. Yeah, well, again, I think it's just, it creates a sense of urgency for us, right? Like we had the conversation about how much of the budget is tied to membership. And so it creates a sense of urgency. And I think what I will say is, I hope you all feel really confident in the work that's being done, because I think I use Ohio as an example a lot when I go and talk to other states about how you are working to respond to the challenge that was presented to you with the shift in how Nationwide shows up as a partner. And you are doing the right things. Like when you look at all of the other membership associations and what they're doing, Ohio is tracking with a lot of that. And so I think you've got great buy-in here at the state office. It's just then deploying those resources and that messaging to our grassroots to help us in that effort. But I hope you feel really good about that. Paul mentioned a book earlier today. And so I actually read that same book last week called Membership by a lady named Sarah Sladek. I struggle with Sarah. She shows up a lot in the member association space. I think some of her stuff is really good, some of it not so good. So it's like a 50-50 shot. And I would say the book is the same way. Half of it I think is really good and solid. The other half I really struggle with. She starts that book talking about how membership organizations have really existed since like the 1600s. So that's like the earliest time that people decided to formalize a group around a certain topic or mission and do work collectively together. And so for centuries, these organizations have, survived through plague, famine, war, right, to get us to here in 2024. But back in the 1990s, there was really a stark shift. A lot of membership organizations saw a deep or a steep drop off in new members coming into the organization. And really, the organizations will just label Gen Xers as they're non-joiners, they're selfish, right? And so that has kind of become the narrative for associations from really the mid-90s until now, right? First it was Gen Xers, and then it's millennials, they're lazy, they only care about themselves. And now it's Gen Z, and everyone loves to hate on Gen Z. And then it's going to be Gen Alpha, and we're going to, dump on them too, probably, right? Because that's our easy excuse for why things aren't going the way that we want them to go. And in the first chapter of her book, in that membership book, Sarah says, we can really identify two main reasons why we're experiencing the struggles that we have as membership organizations when it comes to membership. The first is that membership isn't a conversation or a predominant conversation any longer in our boardrooms, right? We're talking about everything but. Or when we do talk about membership, we look at it only as dollar signs, right? We're only talking about how members bring revenue into the organization and not really how we as an organization can better serve our members. The second is that organizations have not done a good job of reacting to and adjusting to the cultural and social changes that have taken place throughout history, right? Like we just have continued to do the same things that we always do, and we expect people to kind of bend to us and not how can we show up as a better partner, as a more desired solution for the problems that our members might be facing. And so you've heard Paul say it several times this morning already, member-centric, member-centric. Any fans of the show The Crown? Anyone watch The Crown? Just show of hands. Okay, I've got some friends in the room. So early in the series, like It's a great show. So if you haven't watched it, please do. 6 seasons. It's well worth your time. But early in the show, I think it might even be in the first episode. It's before Queen Elizabeth even took the throne. It's her father having a conversation with Philip, and they're hunting, and he tells him, she is the essence of your duty. She is the essence of your duty. And I think for all of us in this room, for all of our volunteer leaders, that's really how we have to think about our members. They are the essence of our duty. They are why we show up and do the work that we do. And without them, we don't have a county farm bureau. We don't have the Ohio Farm Bureau. We most certainly don't have the American Farm Bureau, right? And so we really have to change the way that we think about our members and show up better for them. My hope is that we can unpack some of the things that we know to be true about the people that are out there that we can interact with and recruit as members, and then leave with some better ideas of how do we, build awareness about who we are as an organization. How can we, more effectively show up in spaces where these people are to recruit them to be members? And then once we do recruit them, how can we more effectively engage them based on what they're looking to get out of their time in a membership organization? All right, that's the plan for our time together. I was at an associate, so I was here last week. I flew home on a Thursday, and then Friday I was at a really cool association professional event, and it was a hybrid event, kind of like what we're experiencing today. So the way that they bifurcated that is we've got our friends here on Earth, and then we have our friends in space. And so we will, I'll do my best, even though I know chat is disabled in this webinar, to try to engage our friends in space. So if you have a question, I'm going to ask you to put some things in the Q&A so that we can see them and reflect on them. But I'll try to be much more cognizant that we've got people here on Earth as well as our friends in space. So to start us off, would just love for you to think back to when you were 16 years old. And I want you to pull into your brain, what was your favorite hobby? What was your favorite movie? And what was the newest technology that you had access to when you were 16 years old? When you've got those 3 things, just go ahead and give me a thumbs up. So again, think back to when you were 16, what was your favorite hobby, movie, and the newest technology that you had? Full disclosure, you don't have to say the year that you were born. We just want to know these 3 things. Yeah, just like carry the 2. Again, if you're in space, if you want to put any of those 3 things in the Q&A, that would be awesome. And if we're here on Earth, if we've got those 3 things, let's just give a thumbs up. All right, let's get 3 people to share. You don't have to share all 3. You can share 1 or 2, whatever you feel comfortable with. But let's get 3 folks to share. When you were 16 years old, what was your favorite movie, hobby, or the newest piece of technology that you had access to? Who will share first? Yes.
Tombstone was my favorite movie because of Kurt.
Okay, Tombstone was your favorite movie because of Kurt Russell. All right, love it. Yes, Betsy.
Horses.
Riding horses was your favorite hobby? Do you still like to ride horses?
I do, but I don't know.
Okay, fair. Yeah, Kim.
Shoot basketball.
Okay, shooting basketball.
Play outside all day long. My mom locked us out.
Yeah.
So, Jack, no.
Yeah. There's always technology. So color TV. Okay.
Remember that far back, but I really enjoyed Footloose.
Footloose. Okay, classic. Chip, did you have one you wanted to share?
Newest technology was cassette tapes.
Cassette tapes. Okay, cassette tapes. I remember as a kid, like recording music off of the radio onto a cassette tape. Yeah. See. Yeah. This is fun. Let's keep going, Connie.
Volleyball
Volleyball.
and on the launch of MTV.
Ooh, video killed the radio star. Yeah, awesome. Anyone else want to share? Yeah, go ahead, Mandy.
And we got dial-up internet in Nimble County.
Yeah, dial-up internet. Some people are like, that's still new technology. Tim, did you have something you wanted to share?
Mine was Tombstone because of Val Kilmer.
Okay, So we've got Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer fans in the audience. Awesome. Cool. So how would our parents have responded to those same prompts? Or even our grandparents, right? Like even within this room and in space, we have a lot of different lived experience based on where we grew up, when we were born, how we were raised, right? And our lived experience probably shapes the way that we view and interact with the world that we exist in here in 2024, right? My daily life probably looks a little bit different because I live and work in Washington, D.C. versus someone who might live in rural Ohio, right? And so it's really important that we're cognizant of like what is out there that people have seen that shapes the way that they interact with our world, because then that impacts, and it should impact, how we interact with them as a prospective member. So really, the first chunk of this is we're going to dive in and do an exploration of the different generations that are out and existing in the workforce today. So when we talk about generations that are in the workforce, it's these 5. We've got traditionals, and if they're still in the workforce, God, I hope they can retire soon. These are the folks that were born pre 1946. So they were born, right up to the end of the Second World War. We've got baby boomers who were born between, hey, boomers in the room, hey-o, between 46 and 64. We have Gen Xers that are 65 to 80, millennials 81 to 96, and then Gen Z, which they really say is 97 to about 2013. The end year on Gen Z is kind of in flood. Yeah, Gen Z. Just fair warning, friends, sometimes this becomes like a Gen Z hating session. I try to avoid that, but like it's the reality. You're probably used to it, but just disclaimer there. Yeah, Danielle.
The next really Gen
Alpha is what they're calling them.
comes up with this stuff.
I don't really know who like resets the alphabet on these folks. But Gen Alpha is like the next one that's in the pike. And what we're going to be looking at in terms of the data about generations all comes from Pew Research. Okay. So these are the 5 generations that we're going to take a look at. And when we talk about just our, the population, and so this is a few years old again from Pew Research. You can see that traditionals are that small blue slice. They make up about 6% of the total population back in 2022. Baby boomers were at 23% of the US population. Gen Xers were at 22%, millennials 25%, and Gen Z was at 24%. So that's kind of the landscape just here in the US of our generations within the population. When we think about associations, so again, that MGI report that I referenced earlier this morning, it asks, what is the makeup of your membership, right? And so when we look across the association space, which again, makes a lot of sense, the traditionals, those folks born, at the end of the Second World War, they make up the smallest percentage, right? Because they've probably retired or died, and so they're not a huge part of organizations because they've likely retired from their professional career and they live on a fixed or limited income. And so they're not a member any longer. Then you have boomers, Gen Xers, and millennials that make up the bulk of our membership within member associations. So again, these are those 700 to 800 groups that participate in that MGI survey. And then Gen Z is at 9%. And that will just continue to grow. As Gen Z gets more into the workforce, they find what their career is going to be. They'll find a professional home, hopefully within an organization, and we'll see that their piece of the pie increase as the boomers piece decreases and so on, right? So that's the landscape. And this is from that 2023 report that we looked at this morning. So what we'll be doing is we're going to dive in and become some experts. So I've got some information that I'm going to share, and we're going to break out into groups to take a look at. And really, as we're having these conversations, the goal will be for an individual from each of these groups to share what are some of the major events that shaped the worldview of that generation that you're going to be discussing. We'll have a conversation. I want you to share out about what do they care about and value, and then what are the things that motivate these different generations. So for example, because we're not going to really talk about them because they make up a really small percentage of the population, both in the US and in member organizations. I'm going to share some information about the traditionals with you all, just so you can kind of see what the hope is back from each of the groups that we'll break out into. So when we talk about the traditionals, these are some faces that we should know, right? We've got Sandra Day O'Connor, Frank Sinatra, Martha Stewart, Rosa Parks, the Bushes, God rest their souls, right? So folks that are formative for many of us, right, in our upbringing. So when we talk about them, really these are two distinct groups. We have the GI generation, which is from 1900 to 1924, and then the silent generation, which is 24 to 46. So again, these are the generations that saw the world wars, and really have this idea that service is important, right? Many people gave of their lives to defend our country and our ideals abroad in the world wars. So oftentimes the traditionals are team players, and they are the ones that are putting trust in the people next to them, right? That's what they had to do to come out of the trenches in the war, is you had to trust the people that were around you. They had a higher standard of living compared to their parents, and you'll see that's kind of a theme as we move through each generation. They had a little better than the previous generation because of the work that their parents put into raising them and dedicating themselves to their families. They're caught in between this, like, we have to get it done, right? Like everyone has to pitch in to make this work, to then the boomers and the Xers, which were like the world changers, right? They really shook things up. So they kind of existed in this weird space in between those two mentalities. They didn't want to retire. They wanted to stay in their professions and their organizations because they grew up with scarcity, right? They survived the Great Depression, right? They needed to be able to provide for themselves and their family. They value things like hard work, sacrifice for the common good, duty to their country, thriftiness, this idea of building a legacy, right? And so again, like they saw the wars and the Great Depression, they care about service and doing the hard work, and they want to be happy with a good job and have a good, solid, stable home for their family. So what will happen is I'm going to break the folks here on Earth into 4 different groups. Each group will be assigned one of the 4 remaining generations. So you'll get boomers, Xers, millennials, or Gen Z. I've got some information that looks very similar to this, so I'd love for you to recap that as a group, but then add on to it based on maybe your own lived experience as a member of that generation, or what you know based on the members that you work with as part of Ohio Farm Bureau. Add on to this. And then the goal will be for one person from our group to report out what are the big events that shape their worldview, what do they care about and value, and what motivates them. What's unclear for our folks here on Earth? Cool. Those in space, those of you that are on this, this webinar, go ahead and type in the Q&A. Think about your own personal generation. And I would love for you to, again, identify what are the things that shaped your worldview growing up? What are the things that motivate you, and what do you value and care about? Put your own generations, your own experience in that Q&A, so that we can reference back to it when we get to that presentation. Questions, comments, concerns before we break into different groups? Cool. So we're going to do this in a super scientific way, and I'm just going to number you off 1 through 4, and then each group should just find a corner. Some things that I just want to caution you of as we move into these group reports is there are always going to be exceptions, right? And so you might get this and be like, I completely disagree with everything that's written on here. That happens a lot with the Gen Z group, right? Everyone's like, we hate Gen Z, they're the worst. They're so lazy and entitled. And so there are always going to be exceptions to what the data tells us, right? But my challenge to you is to think about, let's try to keep positive when we're talking about these folks in terms of what they value, what motivates them. I will also say birth year alone does not dictate your generation. It's really more about lived experience. So there are a lot of people that are born on the bubble. And so they may be like, well, it says I'm a Gen Xer, but really this doesn't describe me, right? Because again, based on where you grew up, how you grew up, the things that you lived through, they're going to dictate how you kind of perceive the world that you exist in today, right? So just want to say, before we get into group reports, there are always going to be exceptions. And your age or your birth year alone does not dictate what generation you fall into. It's really more of your mindset and how you interact with the world you live in. All right. So again, I'm going to count you off 1 through 4. Folks in space, put down the information for your generation, and we'll have 7 minutes in our groups of 4 to work through this information, have our conversation, identify our speaker, and those things that we want to share out about our group. Okay. So we'll start here with Adam. You're 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 2. No, you're already 1. 2. Look at that. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. You want to do it? 4. All right. Let's do 1's here, 2's here, 3's here, 4's here. Under here. Oh my goodness. So you're gonna be my number. 2?
I'm a 1.
You're 1. 2's? You're my Gen X. Here, let me go this way.
Yeah. Make up the large share. We only have
Yeah.
maybe we're solid. I don't see money. We're Gen X, so we're the 1965 and 1980. I guess I'll read off here. So grew up at the end of the Cold War and the Soviet Union.
About what some events that they lived through to shape their worldview. What are the things they care about and value? What motivates them? Those are the 3 things we're gonna report out from our.
Maybe I'm
groups.
not supposed to read this.
So the Vietnam War.
Have no idea what a Gen X
What does it care about?
Oh, we had it. Okay. So they grew up at the end of the Cold War, motivated in class, lived during economic recession, and saw organizations and companies change their loyalty.
We are baby boomers.
Little desire to work for the same company their whole life, rejected the values of baby boomers, called them self-centered. Gen X expertise that they can take from job to job. They value learning to live with uncertainty, personal security, saving, life for today, freedom, and autonomy. So what events shape their perception of the world? U.S. rise to international power, less industrialization, what do they care about value, saving money, building skills, what motivates them, transferring skills to new jobs, creating their own work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you're at the tail end. But I think it differs in that it's stability. So the question I really want to answer.
Yeah, I mean, this
I've been in the same place all the time. She's changed, but that's. Book value on like her mental well-being, which I'm
She never was suck it up generation. Our parents were like the first group of people that mine is not in the neighborhood. My mom did not work out. She was on the farm, but most of my friends had a mother or both here, like working. They came in and they were making some money, home babysitter patient. They were latchkey kids. Yeah. That was, we were the start of that was a common generation. That wasn't a rarity. It was common. That was how your role changed. And so you were independent because that's the way that it worked.
And we didn't have technology and motivate them. Ourselves and each other. And work, it's not really. I think, like the events that shape your perception of the world.
I remember a lot of that. I remember when the wall fell, we watched TV and in our classroom. That's what my third so it was like, you guys was 9/11. Yes. Yeah, the challenge was. That was a huge, like, that changed. I mean, my mom's like in stores. It's text.
I was like, it's a song that made my mind world, I ever since then.
I didn't catch it, but I think.
Yeah. Your guys is like celebrities everyone knows, and unfortunately.
They like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I remember my dad was
One of my friends that was like Ash Dallas.
Really, it's great.
My parents were like.
Oh, yeah.
Now you watch it, you're like, why was this worse? Like,
Why did it take you forever? He's like, because we had to get in there, we don't get wet, soap up.
So, what do you care about or value? We have like saving money, building skill. Anything else?
yeah, that's.
What motivates you? Transferring skills to new jobs, well, creating their own path is kind of like on the cause-driven campaigns.
Whereas my.
We have 3 minutes left.
I got ladies basketball for 4 hours.
Are you not tired? Time about Tyler?
That's what my
Yes.
mom said. That's what mom said.
It's not even that. It's just like, you learn.
Yeah.
Also, they're different kids.
Yeah, my mom. Yeah, and you get like the basketball for 3 hours. Yeah, yeah, I was with the janitor, and Linda finally had to drive, like, they didn't really have a cell phone, Linda had to drive out in front. Be like, your daughter, you just a great. But they also. I love Linda. She was, she made my schedule.
Yeah, right now, I have a balance.
Jennifer's a highway robbery.
So how many siblings?
We're all 5 years apart. So,
Like how we're paying that.
I don't think that was, I know Jenna wasn't. We love her anyway.
I remember. Yeah.
You know how they told me? They told me on my birthday, they just took me to Red Lobster, let me order all the crab I wanted. And told me they had to pull around the side of the turnpike because I got sick. So, yeah. Little brat. But she's gonna go to school in Boston next year. So she'll be a mile down there with me. She asked if she could live with me, and I said, no. Absolutely not. No, I'll feed you, you can take a shower like it's not in the community shower. You can live. I think she's a great.
You got what?
As you wrap up these conversations, again, one person from your group will be coming up to share your findings with the rest of the crew. So make sure you have that person identified.
21's the oldest. So they're like between.
Oh, wow.
That was my second. That was when you go with more rotations.
I told you I'm the guy that always breaks up good conversation. So go ahead and head back to your seats. And if I can get my 4 group representatives to come up here and we will begin our group share outs. All right, we are going to start with our baby boomers. Kim, was that your group? We'll start with our boomers and then work our way through to Gen Z.
Okay, since I was the only baby boomer in our group, I get to speak. What events shaped the perception of the world? And, you know, the JFK thing, I told him I can't personally remember, because I'm right on the border, I was 63.
Okay.
But I can remember my parents, just how it was devastating. What else?
Where were you at, Kim?
I was outside on a swing set. Yeah. So I'm told. I don't really remember that, but anyway, that and the war probably was the 2 biggest things. The next, what do you care about, or what do they care about or value? It was community, it was family. It was work, that you put everything into work. Sorry. It was just, that was important to families. We have big families. I did. I know a couple of them in it that aren't baby boomers also have big families. And it's just, you didn't go on vacation. You know, you didn't go buy your first car. It was a hand-me-down.
Mm.
So, and then what motivates them? Community, family, loyalty to your job. The things that matter now seem to be like, us baby boomers look at some of the younger ones and say, my God, don't you have enough? You know, what's enough? So just a different in perspective. But those are the things that we talked about. Did I miss anything, Amanda? All right.
All right, stats for our boomer group. All right, how about Gen X? Lindsay, is that you?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so Gen X again being 1965 to 1980, events that shaped their perception of the world, US rise to international power, less industrialization. Specifically, our group mentioned like the wall coming down, the Challenger disaster, different like cause-driven campaigns like Say No to Drugs, and different things the different administrations led. What do they care about or value? Saving money, building skills, stability, and less of a, I guess, desire to stay in the same job, but more of a willingness to transfer skills and move around to different jobs. So what motivates them? Like autonomy, creating their own path, and again, transferring skills to new jobs. Anything else from our group?
All right, let's
Thank
give it up for our Xers. Thank you. Roy, did you have millennials? Yes, sir. All right.
Yes.
Okay, we had millennials, so kind of the earlier ones would have, maybe the first Gulf War.
Mm.
And then the later ones in that would have experienced the housing collapse, the housing crisis. They were also, this group was the last to experience like the, forget how Leah put it, but like the innocence, like you could go, your kids could just take off and go wherever. And then towards the end, now we fear everything, and you get a fear of internet and people stalking and all that kind of stuff. That, what do they care about? Technology, family time, experiences. and smaller families and values. And what motivates them, again, their family, recognition, instant gratification, and flexibility.
Yeah. Thank you, millennials, good job. And last group, Gen Z.
So by far the event that probably impacted us the most was COVID-19, whether you're at the beginning or the end. Like me, I was graduating college, and then you have people at the end of the generation, they're more like those are their formative years of school. So it looked very different to us. The world, we had our world change just like that when we were very young. When we're looking at care about or value, I really focused on the brand, and I said like identity. We are very concerned with what our identity is, not just in our communities, but in our social media. Like, what is the world view us as? We're very, very comfortable and almost prefer change. We do not want to be in the same job. We don't necessarily want to be in the same place. We do not have that loyalty to a place or to a career that we think the generations before us had. And we're always trying to make an impact, whether it's protesting down the street or posting about something that we really care about. We always want to be trying to make a change in something that we view as important. And obviously diversity is a huge thing. We always want to try to include everyone at the table. And as that research said, we will call it out if we don't see it.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Gen Z group. Thanks to all of our presenters and speakers. So we just heard about 4 different generations. How many of us, as we're hearing those, we can picture 4 very distinct Farm Bureau members in our mind as we're walking through those generations? Give me just some acknowledgement. Like, yeah, do we see them? Like, it could be a hand, a thumb, a head nod, right? So our challenge becomes, how do we be an organization that folks born in the baby boomer generation and also folks that are a part of Gen Z want to be a part of, right? How do we create programming and opportunities? Trevor, thoughts?
We hear from the aliens.
The folks in space. So thank you for that. So Ellie said, finishing school throughout COVID, I think gave anyone that was in school at that time a sense of independence. I think from then on down, what I'm seeing now is that we learn a lot more from watching video. That's true. I went to a conference last year. They had a Gen Z panel, and they're saying things like they're using YouTube and TikTok as a search engine, right? Like, that's where they're going. They're not going to Google. They're going to these like highly visual, right, places, and they're gravitating towards platforms where it's influencer based. So I'm sorry, is it Evan? To Evan's point, right? It's all about this brand and identity. So if I can show up in those spaces as the expert, right? And then someone sees themselves reflected in me, they're more likely to listen to me and what I have to say on a topic than, you know, even science or research, right? So Ellie, thanks for sharing that. Lynn said Gen X. Only thing I would add is I think this generation is bridge builders between other generations. Yeah, right. Because you had, maybe traditional or boomer parents, and Gen Xers are really seen as like the world changers. They're really the ones that like started the change. And again, back to what I referenced earlier, Sarah mentions like the mid-90s. That's when these folks were entering their professional spaces, and they weren't joining organizations like other people had done before, right? They were like shirking the traditions of the past, but they are, Lynn, to your point, a good bridge. And then, and she said, we know and can relate to life before technology and life with technology. So great points. There was another one, I typed an answer to it, but they said they were a millennial, and definitely 9/11 shaped their, growing up. And I responded, yeah, absolutely. I remember I grew up on the West Coast, right? So like the towers were hit when it was like early morning. I was getting up ready to go feed my steer for, getting ready for fair. And then all day long, that coverage was on TV. Every classroom, like nothing got done because we were just watching this crazy thing unfold before us, right? So there's really a challenge for us of how do we be the organization that can be a place for all of these different people, right? And so us as staff, and really, I think of the folks in this room as kind of the keeper of the culture of the organization, right? Like, we are the ones that set the tone for our volunteers and our members. And it's important that we understand who they are and the things that motivate and drive their decision making. So We're gonna transition then to talk really about what does that look like for us here in Ohio. So really grateful to Paul and Adam and probably Amanda too for for helping to pull some data that I could put into some pie graphs so we could take a look at where we are just as an organization here in Ohio. So when it comes to just the overall Ohio Farm Bureau membership, so folks that are under the age of 25, they make up about 2.3% of your membership currently. 25 to 34 are 4.5%. 35 to 44 are 8%. 45 to 54 are 12%, almost 13%. 55 to 64, 21%. 65 to 74, 26, almost 27%. And over the age of 75, 24%. What are just some initial reactions to this data?
I'm impressed we have birthdays on that,
Yeah, yeah. There is a number where you don't, but yeah, based on these, I should say, out of your membership that provided their birth date information, this is down. Amanda, did you have a thought? Or did you? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there is a subset of the data where we don't have that information, right?
Renewals are not gonna give us growth.
Say again?
Renewals are not gonna give us growth with 24% of our members being 75 plus.
Yeah, I was in Michigan. So Michigan does a very similar event to this. They call it their membership recharge. I was there last year. It was like my favorite work travel that I did in 2023. Out of their non-renewals, 1 out of 5 died. 20% of the people not renewing their membership in Michigan Farm Bureau died. That's scary, right? So yeah, we're not going to renew ourselves into growth. Yeah, Joe.
Like those traditionals and that the baby would be baby boom, right?
Yeah, traditional boomers, Xers, like millennials. So it's like, yeah, traditionals are the dark blue, and then it's like baby boomers, Xers, millennials as we work back around.
That we talked about
Mhm.
is you value your organization. It was being involved in your community. It was being supportive. It was everything. And then you see the shift and more focused in other directions and less not loyal, because they're loyal as well.
Sure.
Less blindly loyal, I guess, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what even the research that Sarah in that book talks about, right? Like before, you know, the Xers came along, everyone just joined it. Like there was a lot of social pressure that's what you did. When you got into your profession, you joined your organization, right? You became a Farm Bureau member and you paid your dues, both literally and figuratively, right? You gave the money, but then you showed up and you did the work. And then there was this turning point where it's like, no, if I'm going to give you money, I need to get something back for that, right? And so we've really struggled in that, you know, that 30 plus years to, again, like, how do we talk about the value we provide? How do we demonstrate value, right? And so, yeah, this isn't, I would say this is a little more shocking than what we saw when we looked at just the average of associations in general, right? Like our membership tends to be older. And I think I even did I put the average age? The average age was like 65 or 67, 63. Okay, thank you. Of your membership was 63. I thought I put that information in there, but clearly I did not. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jill. Other thoughts about seeing this data? Yeah, I love that. There is a lot of opportunity here, right? Especially as we think, again, I would really appreciate what Paul shared about how this new campaign will focus on next gen, you know, ag professionals. How do we bring them into the mix? Because they're a vital part of what we do, right? And so, yeah, some good stuff there. Then we asked for data on your delegates. So who are the people that are showing up and creating policy for the Ohio Farm Bureau? And this is what we see. So again, the light blue, less than 25 were 4.5%. 25 to 34, which is that orange slice, was 29 or 21, almost 22%. 23% were between 35 and 44. 14, almost 15% were 45 to 54. 13, almost 14% were 55 to 64. And then 17, almost 18% were 65 to 74, with 3.9% being over 75. How do we feel about this?
Much better.
We feel a lot better about this. Why do we feel a lot better about it?
You have larger perspective, all the generations, all
Yeah, a lot of varied perspective here, right?
It's pretty balanced. I mean, the percentages aren't that far off from each other.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Betsy. Yeah. Yeah, pretty balanced, right? Except for our really old and our really young, right? But everything else is between, 15-ish and 20%, right? So pretty good shakedown there.
I mean, it shows that even though they're a smaller group of overall members, the younger people are getting involved.
Hmm.
The other people that show, like, are paying are showing up.
Yeah,
Have a voice in setting a policy for the future.
yeah, I love that. Folks in space, it was shared that, even though they're a really small percent of the overall membership, young people are showing up and engaging in setting the policy in the direction of the organization, right? When we look, again, I thought I had added it, but I feel like the average age was in the high 40s for this group. Yeah, much younger than your total membership.
Similar derived from that, Austin, that they are invested in what the organization is gonna be doing. But this is an important thing to attend if they have to take time off work. We're looking at those younger folks.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a challenge folks in space, Betsy said, can we derive from this that like they care and they want to be involved, right? But I think it also provides a challenge that we have to continually show the value in that, right? Because we're competing more for their time and attention, right? And so it has to be a place where they want to come. So it should be policy development because that's the purpose of that meeting, but can it also be networking and social? Can it also be personal and professional development in addition to this work that they're doing in policy setting and advocacy, right? And that's just us creating a really well-rounded meeting for people, right? And there's a lot of science in how we like convene folks and develop them. And can we do that from a more holistic perspective? So I think to your point, Betsy, yes, it does show that there's investment there, but it also challenges us to say we have to continue to show the overall value. And it can't just be this one thing too. Yeah, Kim.
I look at my counties, I have a tendency to see that the younger people don't want as involved in my area with policy.
Yeah,
I need that to be more experienced older members to do. I don't know if it's something they're not comfortable with or they don't feel it's important. I don't know, but my group of policy people are not young people.
yeah,
But my group of delegates, I have younger folks that are willing to take that day or two off of work. I mean, take their vacation days to come to the meeting, because I think they feel like that's where the organization's making the decisions of what we're going to do in the next year, and what the stand is we're gonna take. So I do actually have some younger folks that are
Sure.
taking time away from the dairy park or their 9 to 5 job to actually come and say, I want to have input on what's happening with this organization.
yeah.
Now I got the retired folks.
Yeah, and I think again, Tim, it's understanding like what are folks valuing, right? And so are there other things that are happening at the county level that maybe it is something they care about, but they know that that's Jim's thing and Jim is really passionate about that, so they're gonna let Jim do his thing? Or is there a legitimate barrier to maybe Jim won't let that thing go for that person to become the next Jim, right? And so I think we just have to, at that point, we have to know who the players are in our counties and what we can expect. I wish I should have asked if we could have done a breakdown of county boards, but let's just anecdotally talk about that. Where would we say like county boards are falling? Are they more on the like higher age? Are we trending younger? What are we seeing, Trevor?
Well, it depends on your term limits or if you have them.
Yeah.
So you have one that's not, and it's higher age average. And
Yeah.
then I've got one that's really young. Actually, most of our speakers that come to board meetings are like, I'm impressed by the youth that are in the room.
Sure.
So, but then we've got two that are in the middle. So it's
Yeah,
large
a spectrum.
In my area.
Yeah. Plug for term limits, plug from Trevor and Lindsay, give an amen. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, what is your name? I can't see your name tag. Samantha, thank you.
I was thinking, it's really interesting that each of the 4 generations we talked about, I have almost like one county board per generation.
Oh, interesting.
Is aligned with that. And I was telling you what I think is interesting about that is I already kind of handle them in a way that today we talked about how do you handle those generations.
Yeah,
So it's coming through, and I think they all have their strengths, and being in that generation, and I don't know, it's just an interesting spread.
Sure. Cool thought. Thank you. Yeah, Kim, and then we'll go to the back after Kim.
So from when I started till now, when I first started 33 years ago, it was cold.
Mhm.
Very, most of my people were very. And as we said, some of them have passed away, but now my boards are more younger to middle age.
That's great. Awesome. Sorry, sir, what is your name?
I'm Jack.
Jack.
My name's Jack. Gen X are up in the yellow pie here. My observations don't have a lot in that space.
Yeah,
Seems like our members are older or younger, and that's just my kind of general observation. Is that because there's not as many of us, or, is it
so I'm grinning like an idiot because I've been in 3 different states doing some member engagement work recently, and that trend is consistent in every place that I've been. So when we look at county boards, we've got folks in their, mid to high 60s, and then folks in their late 30s, early 40s. So you've got a graph that has 2 big humps on it, and it dips down between mid 40s to like 60 years old, right? And so then that begs the question, there's a lot of ways you have to interpret that, right? So in some places, it's we just have a general engagement problem with that group, right? Because maybe they were really highly involved in our young young farmer program, and then they age out and there's not a space for them to serve in other capacities. And so that's when they take a step back to raise their families. Right now they've got volleyball, basketball, all the things, right? Others are just, we legitimately do not have them in our membership. Like we have this gap. So was there an issue or topic that really a stance that Farm Bureau took at one point that really turned off a large segment of, a specific commodity, or again, an age of producer that just got turned off, has a bad taste in their mouth from something that Farm Bureau did, that are then they ripe to maybe go back to say, here's what we know we did wrong to you in the first place, and we can bring you back maybe. But there is, I've been in Illinois here, and then, Kansas, and that same trend in all 3 of those places. It's you've got these 2 big humps when it comes to like your really engaged members. Jill? Oh, sorry.
Is it part of it, there's just not as many, right? Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's as many Gen Xers, there's definitely not as many as boomers.
Yeah, I mean, they are a smaller generation, but I think when we drill down to the level where we're talking about delegate involvement or county board member involvement, I don't think like the subset of the group, I don't think it's just a small, it's a little smaller, but I wouldn't call it like statistically significantly smaller piece of that pie that you're looking at. Jill, and then Whitney.
With some of what Jack said, but all of the things you talked about, that's my age group.
Mhm.
When I talk to my peers, people I grew up with, I work in my home county. When I ask those people that are the same age as me to be involved, they're so involved with their families.
Yeah.
Because their kids, I have a friend that had a kindergartner to, a grandparent.
God bless.
So That's the age group we have, and that's their dynamic. They struggle to find their fit.
Yeah.
Because they want to be involved, but there's not time to be involved. And there's a real truth about, you were very involved when you were young,
Mhm.
and then there stopped being a place for you, unless you found your place on the board.
Yeah.
There's a huge gap there.
Sure. And I think that's just a great data point for us to say, then how do we, again, like think back to when I first started talking in this chunk of time, we talked about how we as an organization are not adjusting to the cultural and social changes that have taken place. So how do we blow up that traditional engagement structure, right? Because you're either going to serve on a committee or on a board if you're going to be an engaged Farm Bureau member. So how do we blow up that structure to provide these more like micro volunteer opportunities that are greater aligned to our mission and more in tune with what our volunteers actually want to do? Because who wants to give up 3 hours to talk about, your fiduciary responsibility to the county board meeting, when really the thing that you're lit up about is something different, right? And so how can we create opportunities for those folks that aren't these long-term macro engagements? Whitney, additional thoughts?
I think about this a lot, actually, in like my own personal life, being someone who used to do all the things and be super engaged and wanted to serve my community and wanted to be part of everything I possibly get my foot in the door of. Then I had 2 kids.
Yeah.
Those are, it's a conscious choice to, okay, well, I either have to coach my kid's soccer team or I have to do this.
Sure.
Organization did anything necessarily wrong.
Yeah.
For me, it's just as we ebb and flow to different like points in our life. When you're younger, it may be like, well, I'm just figuring out my career where I don't need physical income. Or when you get to like, like where I am in life, it's like, okay, but I have to run Game Changer, I've done baseball game and, all these other ridiculous
Yeah.
things. And it's not that they don't want to be engaged or maybe they're okay being on the sidelines, but I always ask myself, like, what's my path back?
Sure.
Like to anything that I used to do, because a lot of things I'm doing right now aren't necessarily for me.
Yeah.
They're for other people. And so when it's time for me to like make my own path back, like what is my path back? Like what's my opportunity here? What's my opportunity there? How do I continue to like jump back in? And so like as we look at the people we lose, like yes, especially from like a leadership or delegate perspective, not really membership, but the people who are doing things, what's their path back in? Like, can I help them identify places in life, or can we present them options of things that, not every opportunity is the same, but just keeping in mind that like, just because they're not with you today, there may be a path
Sure.
back for them down the road when they're able to prioritize their own interests.
Yeah.
And that's why there's such a big gap in the middle there as well. You have the people who are still really capable of giving their time, the people who need to pull back a little and are watching from afar and just waiting for their next opportunity.
Yeah, I love it. Great insights. I want to keep us chugging along. So we've talked about this, but the key for us is to continually identify like what are the threats that exist, right? But then also what are the opportunities? And I think we've talked a lot about them today. How I want to wrap us up is just walking us through that member journey, and then giving us an opportunity to take all that we've learned and discussed today and put that into practice using this new information. So Paul shared this image earlier in one of his presentations, but this is really the member journey. We break it down into 2 phases. So you have member acquisition, and that consists of awareness and recruitment. And then once you get them converted to be a member, then it all becomes about member retention. So it's about engagement, it's about renewing them, and if you lose them, it's about reinstating them, right? So what I want to do is walk through this member journey quickly and break down each of these components and then give you an opportunity to put all that we've learned and discussed into practice, brainstorming some tactics to move forward. So when we think about awareness, this general step of the member journey, awareness is really a recognition of the organization by the prospective member that it seeks to serve. So before people can join Farm Bureau, they have to know that there is a Farm Bureau. They need to be aware generally of what kind of things that we do, and they need to know that we want them to be a part of those things, right? So we have a duty to these prospective members to build a greater awareness about who we are, what we do, why we do it, and that we want them to be a part of that work. What I'll share is that when someone has a positive awareness about your organization, it typically, not always, but it typically makes the ask during recruitment a little easier, right? And so if people see Farm Bureau supporting youth at their county fair, if someone's kid gets a scholarship from Farm Bureau, if teachers get to have free educational resources through your Ag in the Classroom efforts, if your wife and our committees are giving back, through food drives and volunteer activities in their community, right? If Farm Bureau is sponsoring the county parade, right? Like if people see your brand and they understand who you are and they get a friendly face when they interact with the organization, they're like, oh yeah, I know Farm Bureau, so-and-so's in Farm Bureau, or Farm Bureau was here, my kid got a scholarship. And so the more that we can do to have and build positive awareness, the easier our job becomes. Now, it's not going to make it like everyone's going to say yes, right? But if they know who you are, what you do, and they have a positive association with you, it makes that ask a little easier. I use my parents as an example. So I was started my career as a high school ag teacher, but before that, I was mistakenly placed into an ag class when I was a sophomore in high school. And because of that, that's why I'm standing in this room with you today. Like, I signed up to be in video production, third period of my sophomore year of high school. And the course codes were so similar that there was like my guidance. That's when they had to still put in course codes by hand. My guidance counselor like transposed two numbers. And so I ended up walking into ag facilities and maintenance when I was in third period of sophomore year, right? But I met my ag teacher. He shook my hand at the door. He asked why I was there. I was like, I don't know, it's a mistake. I need to change my schedule. I went to a big high school, so sophomores didn't get to change their schedule the first week of school. And he's like, give me a week. And here I am, all these years later, right? So FFA was formative for me when I was a young person. I was like awkward, chubby. I had a bad haircut. Only two of those things are true today. And it just totally changed my life, right? And so California has an ag license plate program. And so, you pay an additional registration fee. A portion of that goes back to support the state program for FFA and 4-H. And my parents are like, yeah, my kid would not be the kid they are today if it weren't for this program. So my parents have like 3 cars, a boat, an RV, all of them have an ag plate on them. That was an easy sell for them because of what FFA did for me as a youth. And I think Farm Bureau has that same kind of effect on people, right? And so how can we do a better job of building awareness and a positive awareness about who we are and what we do and why we want people to be a part of our organization? After awareness, then it really moves to recruitment. And so I don't like to criticize Farm Bureau a lot, but what I notice about our volunteers is that they'll be like, Farm Bureau is great. We do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. You should be a member, right? They throw everything against the wall and hope that something sticks. And that really it's all just like sliding down, and people, you have overwhelmed them with information that is not relevant to who they are or what they care about. So when we talk about recruitment, it's really having this like carefully crafted and laser focused approach. So we need to, number one, understand our target audiences, right? And again, I think Adam and the crew here at the state office is really like, this is our target, right? We want the farmer of the future. Here's what we know about them, right? And we're tailoring our messaging and offerings towards that target audience, right? And then we've got these offers, right? If the corporate membership is a reduced membership per person, right? We're trying to sweeten the deal a little bit, like sign up, you get a free t-shirt or a hat, right? Like, we know that people love that stuff, but it's about understanding who we're talking to, knowing what they care about or what their pain points are, having this clear and compelling messaging about how Farm Bureau can help them or show up as a partner or a solution for them. And then we sweeten the deal with an offer of some sort, right? So that's the recruitment stage. Once we get them to say yes and they become a member, then it becomes all about engagement. And so engagement really sets the stage for successful renewal. If I were to have 30 more minutes to talk through that benchmarking report, if they ask membership professionals, why do people choose to not renew their membership in your organization? Lack of engagement and lack of value are the top 2 reasons identified, right? And so if we're not engaging people, if we're not helping them utilize our programs and services and offerings, they're never going to see that ROI for their membership. Okay. And so it's really important for us to work with our county boards to think about how do we strategically engage people in the activities and pair them up with the services that we offer that meet their greatest need or help them get to where they want to go in life. Okay. Once we engage them, then at the end of the year, we're obviously trying to renew them, right? So renewals are important for organizational growth. We talked about that. For every member that we lose, we have to bring back 2 in their place, right? But if we only keep the members that we have and we don't get anyone new, we don't grow. But if we keep the people we have and we bring in new people, then we're growing like gangbusters. So they're super important for like creating a foundation for growth. And really, we have to use that active renewal as understanding, like, do they have confidence in us and that we're delivering on our value, or do they not have confidence because they're choosing to not renew, right? And then the last stage is reinstatement. And the idea here is that the most likely person to join your organization is someone that was already a member, right? And so it's a lot easier, it's a lot cheaper to win people back than to bring in new people, because you're not having to do all of that work to build awareness, right? They know what Farm Bureau is, they know what Farm Bureau does, they saw value in that at one point in time, right? And so this idea of how do we, leverage their experience and what we're doing to win them back into the organization. So that's the whole member life cycle, right? It starts with awareness, who we are, what we do, why we do it, and we want you to be a part of it. Then it's we know who you are, we know what you need. Here's how we can help you. Here's how we show up as a solution. Here's your free hat. Come be a member, right? Then we engage them in our programs and services, right? We get them all dialed in, and then we ask them to renew. And if they've been engaged, that's an easy sell. And if they haven't been, it's a much tougher sell. And if we lose them, we just need to know that they're the most likely folks to come back to us. They should be at the top of our prospect list the next year, right? Because we don't have to do all of that awareness building. So the challenge for us now is, how do we combine these two things that we've been talking about? How do we combine this information about generations and overlay it with this new learning about the member journey? And that's what we're going to do to wrap up today. So in your folder, you should have a paper that looks like this. Folks in space, I'm really not sure what it has been provided to you. This was sent out. Okay, perfect. You should have this maybe in your email or some other form or fashion. So on this, you'll see that we've got the 4 generations that we discussed in our group reports today. Not that I'm not going to give love to the traditionals, but there really aren't that many of them to recruit. Okay, so we're going to just focus on baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Z. And the 3 questions that we're going to tackle are: what can be done to help build awareness of Farm Bureau with those specific generations? So knowing what we know about what they care about, what they value, what motivates them, how can we better build awareness with each one of those generations? The second question: what are the recruitment or marketing methods that would work best for that generation? How we talk to and recruit a Gen Z is going to be different than how we talk to and recruit a baby boomer, right? And then the last one: what are the opportunities that might appeal most in terms of engagement with the organization for each generation, right? So we know that boomers they're loyal, they're committed, right? So maybe it is the board service, it's serving as a delegate, being on a commodity advisory committee. But we know that Gen Xers and millennials, they're busy folks. So how do we engage them when maybe sitting on a county board isn't going to be the space to do that right now for them, right? So here's the challenge. I know we're inching into the lunch hour. So I want us to take just 6 minutes and think of the generation that you are personally a part of, that you identify with as your person, right? Answer these 3 questions for that generation. Your homework can be, as you've got time, driving down the road, which I know you all do, is to think about how would we fill in the rest of that chart for these other generations. So 6 minutes, your generation, answer these 3 questions. What's unclear? Okay, let's do it. I don't have fancy music like Paul did. My game. Surely 90s country is a good choice, right? Always a solid.
I was only 8 years old that summer, and I was sitting away. So I took myself down to the fair and said, all independent. On the wall, you are the dangerous man. Get me to the county.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take the uptick in conversation that we have effectively tackled our challenge. So I would love, let's just get two folks to share, preferably two folks from a different generation. So who will share how you responded to these three questions? Yes, Kayla.
One of the millennial category, what I said was building awareness. I think where I pay most attention to other organizations and businesses that are impactful are when they support the community in other ways. And we're going to see that whether they're sponsoring something at a fair, buying animals, whether they're partnering with another organization on an event. Those are places where I see them, and that's how I learn about those organizations. As far as recruitment and marketing methods, I think when I'm also looking for information about an organization, I'm looking to someone who's already a part of that organization, that personal connection connection. And it could be them, sharing a post on social media that sparks a conversation, or it could be, seeing them somewhere or something, but that knowing someone who's already in it and trusting their opinions to tell me what their organization is about is gonna impact me more and whether I wanna be a part of it too.
Sure.
And then as far as opportunities, when I look back at when I first started as a county farm bureau volunteer and the experiences and things that led me to where I am today, it was those things that when you leave there, you're like, wow. Things like the Young Ag Professionals to DC, Ohio Farm Bureau annual meeting, AFBF annual meeting, all of those things where you're seeing the bigger picture of things and walking away with like this whole new vision.
Yeah,
That's the fuel that got me to where I am today.
love it. Thank you for sharing. Cool. Let's get one more person, not a millennial. Who else will share? Yeah, Nick.
So Gen X, tail end of Gen X there. I think, still connected through technology. We don't try to adapt much to the generation, but yet we're here now.
Yeah,
We should. Andy and I were talking the other day. Facebook is for that generation, Instagram is for the next one.
sure. Yeah. TikTok is for the one after
Still
that.
opportunity there for- And you said earlier, running smaller opportunities.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of growth there where that micro volunteer, like, I'll be there to help prepare food for that 4 hour period, but I'm done.
Yep.
Give me my free t-shirt for being there.
Yeah, exactly.
I still think face-to-face though with that group is gonna be key.
Yep.
To get them to join, and personal mailing, and again, maybe something for joining right off the bat. But I think where those opportunities that might appeal most are, for me, I think it's family opportunities. There are things that we do that I can bring my family to and enjoy, it doesn't cost me anything because I'm already a member.
Yeah.
Or to reduce costs of some sort or whatever, but, and then I think there's more opportunity there to possibly interact with that membership, that part of the membership. Without having to have a meeting, and I think go back to technology again, I think they're sitting at the kids soccer game. On their phone.
Sure.
If it's a kids soccer game that.
Yeah, yeah.
Good job, and they're staring at their phone. There might be opportunity there for us to interact with them that way.
Yeah.
How do we do that? How do we as an organization move a little faster?
Yep.
We have our process.
Yeah.
And that process might need to change.
Totally understand. Appreciate you both sharing. Thank you. So again, your homework is to think about how would we fill in this chart for those other generations that we're not a part of. And the key here, friends, is if you don't know, find someone who can help you fill in those boxes, because we have to show up differently for different people. It's all the whole, any marketer will tell you, you have to know your target audience, right? And so again, you're going to talk to someone in the baby boomer generation differently than you're going to talk to someone from Gen Z, and they're going to show up in different spaces to talk to them, right? If you haven't, if this stuff is interesting to you, or you think, man, I would love to walk my county board through an experience like this, we do have our bridging the generational divide training on Farm Bureau University. So if you, as Ohio Farm Bureau staff, you log into Farm Bureau University, and you go to our field staff or our staff guides for training module, our generational differences, it's PowerPoints, handouts, all of that is there for you to use. And Paul has my permission to share this presentation as well. So again, if you want to do some of this stuff with your counties, please R&D it, rip it off and duplicate it. Because I think these are really important conversations to have. And hopefully you felt more comfortable having them doing that work to kind of unpack what we know about different generations. So I've eaten up enough of your lunchtime, so I'm going to stop there. And I think we'll transition.